Carolyn Leavitt doesn't really care for the truth, and that should come as no surprise to us because, of course, it is her job to lie on behalf of Donald Trump, a job she does quite poorly, usually resulting in her being flustered, attacking the press, or being humiliated to her face. And it is that humiliation which she just suffered live on air because she is so bad at her job, and it is so easy to pick apart her lies, which is something Congressman Robert Garcia will be doing even more now as he was just elected as the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee after we watched Leavitt get humiliated. We're going to speak to him about just that. But before we get into Carolyn's collapse, of course, we need to start with someone who is calling out the attack on the press we see from the White House, and that's Jessica Tarlov right here.
So I don't know. That's just my view on it. I also don't know how many reporters there would be who got the opportunity to report that early intelligence brief on what had happened and wouldn't have put it out there. And then after it came from CNN, it was confirmed by other outlets. Listen, Donald Trump hates the press. It's his number one witch hunt or whatever. And Secretary Hegseth knows how to please his boss.
No,
and
I
that
think
was
they
a
hate
performance.
The biased press.
No,
the biased press. They don't hate
but
the
they
press.
decide who's biased on a daily basis. He does it all the time. He goes, "Oh, you're not so bad today," and then tomorrow he says, "Oh, wait, I hate you again." So Secretary Hegseth was, that's fine, but it doesn't change the reality of it. That the way that he speaks to them, the way that he discredits genuine questions, and it happened today with Secretary Hegseth. And the questioning about, what changed over the last 3 days, right? That you are now willing to say this was total obliteration when you said the reports are going to come in over time. And I know that it went well because we got the review from Trump, one of the greatest, most professional, and most confirming news conferences I've ever seen. The fake news should have everyone involved in this. We should fire everyone involved in the witch hunt and apologize to our great warriors. I haven't seen anyone minimizing the warriors, asking questions about where 400 pounds of 60% enriched uranium is not minimizing what these warriors did. And we should note as well that people in the intel community, they're warriors as well, and they get diminished constantly. He talks about the deep state, et cetera. The European intel agencies are reporting that the uranium is intact. Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat.
Wait, Jessica, the Europeans, we were telling them Russia was going to invade Ukraine for a year, and they were like, no, I don't see it.
Listen.
I think American and Israeli intelligence is much crisper.
Well, the senators were briefed today. Tom Cotton comes out, and he said it was not part of the mission to destroy the uranium. Well, why wouldn't it be? If you thought that all the uranium was in Fordo, why wouldn't you have wanted to totally obliterate the weapon?
Maybe it's not that everyone in the media is biased against Donald Trump, but instead, maybe it's Donald Trump being biased against truth. Did we ever think of that, folks in the administration? Oh, no, we didn't. Well, that is no surprise, but it's why we have to work so much harder to call them out, which is what we saw Jen Psaki do, and a new habit she has of carrying out Carolyn Leavitt's responsibilities for her, but actually doing the job correctly and answering questions. And that was pretty humiliating, as we can see right here.
So it was another chaotic day in Donald Trump's America, another chaotic one in which they decided to hold a White House press briefing. And since Carolyn seems to be following the same attack the press strategy as Pete Hegseth, I figured I would take some questions. Rachel Scott, ABC News, kick it off.
Just to follow back up on the meeting that the president mentioned about wanting to have this meeting with the Iranians next week. Clearly, there's a willingness here from the administration to want to meet with Iranian officials. What is the holdup here in trying to schedule it? Are you experiencing any resistance from the Iranians?
I mean, first of all, Rachel, let's all hope there is even a tiny, tiny iota of truth behind Trump's claim that there are discussions underway about a meeting with the Iranians next week. We did just strike them 4 days ago. We have no idea if that is actually true. But if it is, that would be good news. Because even if the military strikes last week had destroyed the program, which it seems pretty clear they did not, you can't bomb away knowledge or intention. That's what we were just talking about. And the Iranians still have key know-how to make a nuclear weapon. And after the last few weeks, I mean, they may also have increased intention. Who knows? Quick follow-up.
And just one more, just on the goal of the meeting. The president mentioned yesterday that it may not be necessary to have an agreement with the Iranians. What is the purpose? What would be the goal of this meeting?
Look, if there is an iota of a possibility for talks that could lead to negotiations, of course, the goal is a deal. You need a deal to return inspectors who can have visibility into what the capacity is at the existing facilities and how much enriched uranium they have. We don't know that right now. We won't know it for a while. or wherever maybe. That was one of the benefits of the nuclear deal that Trump ripped up. This isn't about trusting the Iranians. It's about having the ability to verify what they're actually doing. You need a deal to do that. Okay, Carolina, Lumeta, go ahead.
In January, President Trump revoked security details for several former administrations, including Mike Pompeo, Mark Milley, and John Bolton. Given the heightened tensions with Iran right now, is he considering restoring those security details?
That's an easy one, Carolina. Nope, not at all. Okay, Aisha Hasni, Fox News, go ahead.
How confident are you that you'll find this leaker?
I mean, first of all, Aisha, the story about the leaker and finding the leaker is exactly what Trump and Hegseth want you to be asking about in the White House briefing, which is maybe why you were asking about it. That aside, I don't think either of them have shown any care whatsoever to date about the proper handling of classified information. Do you? Trump was hit with 40 felony counts for his mishandling of classified documents. Pete Hegseth was texting war plans on Signal a few months ago. I don't think their search comes from a genuine concern about respecting classified information. That answers your question. All right, let's do one more. Brian Schwartz from the Wall Street Journal.
One big beautiful bill. There's conversations on the Hill right now about the Medicaid cuts. I'm curious if the final bill that the president's been talking about comes to him and it has Medicaid cuts in it, will he sign it, or would he rather just Congress do away with those cuts?
Of course he will sign it, Brian. He just won't call it cuts. No Republican will. They will say they are necessary reforms. But no amount of spin changes the fact that the current bill would knock 16 million people off of health care, including 8.6 million on Medicaid, because of cuts. That's what they are, and no requirements. The only tiny sliver of good news here is that the Senate parliamentarian just blocked a number of the provisions in the bill for now, including some of the health care cuts that Republicans desperately want.
Just a brutal takedown of Carolyn Leavitt's complete inability to do her job. Someone who claims, as we talked about with the congressman in just a second, that she's running the most transparent administration in history on the press side of things. A complete lie, and one that she is going to be held accountable for now that Congressman Garcia is doing oversight over this corrupt administration. And I talked to him all about that in an interview. I hope you stick around all the way through because we got some breaking news in there.
Congressman, before we get, unfortunately, into the Trump of it all, fortunately, we're starting off with some pretty exciting news because your colleagues elected you. You're going to be the top-ranking, you are the top-ranking member on the Oversight Committee. And what is more just kind of exceptional than that is that you're young, right? And this is the first time that we've seen in 100 years, a Democrat, a sophomore Democrat, be elected to a position like this. Now, this is exceptional news, but I'm wondering, do you think this is a marked change in our party's geriatric approach to leadership? Do you think we're going to see more examples, or maybe is it just because you're so spectacular that this happened, or do you think this is the direction our party goes with leadership moving forward?
I think it has to be the direction that our party goes. We have to. I think the party has to learn lessons, and obviously we had a horrific loss, obviously, with Donald Trump being reelected. And I think this is a moment where Democrats in the House and Congress understand that we have to expand the tent. We got to bring more people to the table, and we got to bring in the next generation of Democrats and newer voices. Look, I've obviously only been in Congress a little over 2 years, and the opportunity that I've been given to lead what I believe is one of the most consequential committees in the Congress, which is the Oversight Committee that looks at investigations and will look at investigating the corruption of Donald Trump. I know it's a big responsibility. I know it's one that we can meet, and we have an incredible team of Democrats on that committee that are going to bring the fire, the investigations, and work to make government better.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are you thinking is going to be a first step? Let's say Democrats, please God willing, retake the House. What is going to be our first step in holding this administration, which is just plagued with corruption all over? How are we holding them accountable?
I mean, one is obviously we're going to get started right away. We're not going to wait till we're the majority. We're going to launch our own investigations. We're going to get out and push back on the lies of members like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace and Jim Jordan and all these guys that sit on this committee. We're not going to let their lies go unchecked. So bringing the facts is going to be important. And then we're going to prepare for a robust agenda when we win the majority. And I think we're all working towards that. Look, this is the most corrupt president and family in the history of the United States. $400 million plane, a crypto scheme where basically foreign governments and investors can put in unlimited amounts of money to benefit his family. real estate deals in countries we should be doing diplomacy with, selling all types of gadgets and Bibles and shoes and telephones to enrich his family, and using the presidency to sell tickets to come to the White House basically at $1 million a piece for dinners. This is a high-level corrupt enterprise that is in the White House, not just benefiting Donald Trump, but benefiting his family. That's got to be taken on immediately.
And what's so interesting, and interesting might be the wrong word to describe this, but they're doing it so publicly. Like, there's a lot of intentionality with how public Donald Trump does his corruption. To pretend like if it's out in the open, then it's business as usual. And well, this is what all politicians do. I don't remember presidents of the past accepting $400 million jets that are really just personal gifts to them. They have to spend money to fix it up. And then Donald Trump's just taking it with him. But in that context, understanding that Trump is okay with this being public because he thinks then the mainstream media will move past it, how do we need to work to make sure that we're defining the narrative, that it's not just talking about it and moving on after the press cycle's done, but we actually hit him back on this?
And this is really important what you just said, because we cannot allow this to be normalized in our government and in the country. And so it is more important than ever that Democrats bring a strong agenda that takes on corruption and shows the American public that this is not acceptable for any president of any party, which is why we've got to be very aggressive. But at the same time, look, we're not going to let other folks that are trying to take advantage of the American people off the hook. There are powerful corporations in this country and powerful people, billionaires in this country, that are ripping off the American taxpayer and middle-class working people. Those folks also need to be asked the tough questions and come to the Congress and come to this committee so that we can ensure that people aren't being ripped off. Donald Trump's ripping you off, the big corporations are ripping you off, billionaires are taking huge tax breaks and stealing basically health care from working class people, people with disabilities, people that are low income. So this oversight committee in that respect has a huge agenda. The second piece is the committee is oversight and government reform. Let's reform our government. And we're going to have a forward-looking, progressive agenda on efficiency, effectiveness, good programming, uplifting the federal workforce, and I'm excited to help lead put that agenda together.
I really can't believe we have such a great communicator in this position. You just did my job for me. My next question really is, like, the right has co-opted the idea that there are so many problems with government, which they are. We can admit to that. We do not want to just stick with the status quo. But how do we work our opposition into how they've broken government, into that aspirational, progressive vision that you're talking about? Like, this is actually what we will do to make sure government works for you, that we're not just looking back at what's broken, but actually trying to fix it and make it better. What do we do with that?
So I think, look, what's really important is that we have this forward-looking agenda, right, for our committee. And I'm tired of the words efficiency and effectiveness being tied into what Republicans do. That's somehow damaging government, making it smaller, DOGE. It's somehow effective. We know that real effective government are actually agencies, programs, services that actually work faster and more efficient for the American public. Imagine using technology and innovation so that you can get your services and questions answered better through our agencies. Imagine actually uplifting and investing in the federal workforce so that they're actually able to use technology and innovation to help people that need their Social Security information, that can help people access their veterans benefits. So we have to be a party that brings in new ideas, next generation of ideas, and we can't be afraid of government reform. Democrats should be the party of government reform. Democrats should be the party of the anti-corruption work in this country. And so we can do both of those things.
Yeah, but the party that cares about public goods, we should want people to be able to access those public goods. And of course, we just saw a very successful campaign of another young progressive leader like yourself in New York, with Zohran Mamdani.
Incredible.
And he is talking about affordability, but framing it again in this very aspirational way of here's how we can easily make government work, that we are actual actors, not bystanders in this fight. What did you take away from Zohran's campaign? What do you think that Democrats who maybe aren't so quick to embrace him, because there's a lot of those, should be learning as well?
I think we've got a lot of lessons to learn from his campaign. First of all, I think it's been incredibly inspirational. And I think people are taking away some of the wrong lessons here. His campaign was not about what's happening in the Middle East or people's personal opinions of what's happening in Israel and Gaza, or it was not about him being a democratic socialist. His campaign was about forward-looking, popular ideas that speak to working class people. That's what he did. And then he communicated those ideas in the ways that people now gain and get their information. When you know, as a former mayor, when you start talking about things like making sure that housing is affordable, that transit's going to be free, that there's going to be childcare, that is exciting stuff. And I commend his vision. I think I was proud of the DNC that on day one said, this is our Democratic nominee, and we're going to support him. He's their Democratic nominee. And my challenge to every Democrat is get on board, support your party. Let's build a coalition. We can build a coalition. Yes, he may be more progressive than you'd like on some issues. He is our nominee. We can bring together the left, our liberal coalition, progressives. Let's actually build coalitions for once instead of dividing ourselves, instead of putting ourselves in these groups. Let's build a big coalition and beat whether it's going to be Andrew Cuomo or if it's going to be Eric Adams. And I think he's the right guy to do it. And I was talking to Alexandria of AOC just yesterday about the race, and we're excited to have Zoran come to DC. Because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and I wish him the best of luck.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that we have two very exciting progressive leaders. This has been a big week for our progressive leaders,
yes, absolutely.
and I appreciate you talking to me about it, Congressman.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.